I'm Paris, and welcome to Keep It Social, the live show. This is our first time going live, and we're really excited because we're going to be talking about all the stories that are popping on our timelines and yours, and we need you to do it. From the Netflix hit Social Dilemma to the presidential election to cancel culture and TikTok, we're covering it all. And we want you to join the conversation by asking a question or sending us a comment during the show. And you know who I've got with me along for the ride, my wonderful co-host, Terrence. How's it going, Terrence?
I'm good, Paris. I'm so excited. It's our last show. I'm sad about that, but I'm excited to spend it with you and to spend it with everyone watching, right? Because I definitely want to hear what they have to say.
So do I, Terrence. And I'm really excited to be here with you, too. And you know what? You and I, we might be a little nervous to do this live, but we show ain't shy. I tell you that much. So we don't want you all watching to be shy either. So Terrence, let's jump right into it. There's this new Netflix documentary called The Social Dilemma, and it has everybody asking, should I get off of social media? Do I need to delete my accounts? And I don't really know if I'm there yet, but let's take a look at a clip from the film.
Let's do it.
When you go to Google and type in climate change is, you're going to see different results depending on where you live and the particular things that Google knows about your interests.
That's not by accident, that's a design technique.
What I want people to know is that everything they're doing online is being watched, is being tracked. Every single action you take is carefully monitored and recorded.
Okay, so what? But also I think we all kind of knew that. We all kind of
right. I mean, I actually watched the documentary,
right?
And for me, so I have to be honest, I was one of those people who was posting all the time on social media, right? Especially in undergrad. And then I start to see how it was affecting me and how I saw myself. And so I naturally started to take steps back. And then when I watched this documentary, it just affirmed that I was right to take steps back. And I feel like maybe I need to take even more steps back. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I can't really delete it because of the kind of work that I do. However, I have noticed how it's changed people, how it had changed me. And I was like, this is not what I'm trying to do. It's having negative effects on me. So I need to take some steps back,
Do you could you get a little bit more into that? What were the negative effects? How were you really noticing that it was changing you?
So one of the things that the documentary talks about in detail is how, because of social media, we've all kind of changed how we view ourselves, right? How we view beauty, how we view, the value of people based on likes, based on comments, all of those things, right? And so for me, I started to really question, my physical attraction, am I as great or as handsome as I think I am? And the answer is yes. The answer is yes. But yeah, you see so many people on social media, and sometimes it's natural, I feel, because of social media now, truly to compare yourself. And so when I noticed that was happening to me, I was like, no, don't play yourself that way. You're great. You look great. You always have, and you always will. Okay. So I just had to back away. I had to take some steps away.
I feel you. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. If anybody watching has had that moment where you've been like, I've got to get off social media for my own mental and emotional well-being, let us know about it. We will, and whether it's a self-image thing or whether it's generally just trying to take a break from all the news and everything that's going on, it's totally understandable. And like you, Terrence, I mean, honestly, I've never gotten so close. I've gotten close. I've considered deleting my social media accounts, but I've never actually done it. And all of my friends who have done it are like, it's a game changer. It really is one of the best things you can do for yourself. I know some friends who have specifically done it during the pandemic because they're like, this is just too much, right? And so, I don't know. I guess what would you say to somebody like me who's maybe who might that extra little push to maybe take a break. If, a moderated break, because everything is good in moderation, including moderation.
Right. I would just say jump off the ledge, right? Like just go and do it. One of my friends, I think it was right after I came to Boston for grad school. The transition was difficult. I didn't have a lot of friends here, and social media wasn't really helping with that. I was paying attention to how much I was missing out on things, right? And one of my friends, his name is Dale Hall, he was like, you know what? Just take a week off. Just take a week off and just watch how it will affect you. So I just say jump off the deep end, take a week off, and just see how it changes you. For me, it illuminated so much and it helped me center myself so much. So I say take a week off. And if you can't do a week, start with 2 days. Do what
Okay.
works for you. You know what I mean?
Okay, I can do that. I can do that, Terrence.
And let me know how it goes. Right?
I will.
And
I will.
if you need an accountability partner, let me know too.
Okay. Yes, right. If you see me liking pictures, if you see me retweeting tweets, you can say now Paris.
Right. I will call you out. I have no issue doing that.
Okay, I'm gonna take you up with that because I do. I have a problem with sometimes doing these things. Like I'll say, oh yeah, like I'm not addicted to social media. I don't need to take a break. Like da 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 da.
Right.
And I think I can do that. So, but
And
I
that's
also.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say that's one of the things that the documentary really amplifies is the fact that a lot of us don't see it as an issue. A lot of us don't think we're addicted. A lot of us think it's just the new normal. And I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that.
Hey, it's a good question. And I think it also raises this question of like the role, right? Like social media seems so ubiquitous in our lives. It seems like it's everywhere. We can't get rid of it, right? And like there we actually have a comment from Wesley Alston, and we share the same last name because yes, that is my brother. But I want to say, Wesley says that he is considered deleting social media. He still is considering it. And that's interesting to me because I guess what has my hesitation, and I wonder if this is the same for Wesley, like, is, oh my God, like, am I going to miss out on something, right? Am I going to miss some big piece of news? Or like, is it true that I can just let go of this and there's not going to be a void? And so what do you think? I mean, like, when you're not on social media, when you don't have access to it, is it still easy to get what you need to get? Or maybe you just like don't need some of those things.
I think it's the latter, right? I think we don't need as much of it as we think we do. You know what I mean? I think, especially after watching the documentary, psychologically, every time you like scroll on your feed or refresh your feed, there's an idea of something being new, something being fresh, something being exciting there, right? And so naturally, it's like you're being rewarded for just refreshing almost because you get something new, you get something fresh,
Exactly.
The reality is 9 times out of 10, you probably don't even need it,
Yeah.
It probably isn't going to truly help you. It's just the fact that we're so used to having mounds of information and mounds of things coming at us that we think if we don't have it, we're missing out. And I don't think that's the case. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right. And like you said, I mean, like the documentary points out this fact, right? That like these platforms are designed to keep our attention and to keep us coming back and keep us scrolling. It's like shopping, right? Like, oh, everything seems so innocent when you walk into Target, but then you never notice that the value stuff is placed right at the front of the store, and you're like, oh yeah, I need this cute little paper clip. Or like, oh, it's $1. I'm only scrolling for a few minutes, right? And that's how they get you.
And then you're in a rabbit hole and you're there and you don't even know you're there,
I know. Well, speaking of it feeling impossible to leave, Noah Janes wants to know from us, what's our favorite platform? And it's so much that our favorite that it might feel like it's impossible to leave. What's the one for you?
I have to be honest and say that Twitter is my favorite platform. I like that Twitter is so fast and so quick, and There's a lot of conversations happening. I do feel like Twitter, like other apps, are super polarized, right? And I do think that tribalism is present on all these apps. But Twitter is my favorite, not only for like the news and stuff, but Twitter is so funny. Like the comedy that is on Twitter is unmatched. It's just unmatched. Like the comedy is hilarious. And so I don't know. It'll be really hard for me to get rid of Twitter. What about you?
Yes. Twitter is the one for me too. I agree with you. It's so funny. I also feel like Twitter is kind of the like hub of where all these other platforms come together. Like something can happen on TikTok, but I don't need to be on TikTok to see it, right? And like
Right.
something can happen on Instagram, and like someone will just share a screenshot on Twitter, which I really appreciate. And so it would be, and I also get the most of my news from Twitter, so that's
Yeah.
why I kind of feel like, oh my god, I can't let go of it. But you know, the news on Twitter also comes from the actual news outlets, so maybe that's
Right.
maybe
It
that's why.
does. So you're not gonna miss anything, you see?
Right. And thinking on a bigger kind of more, you know, oversight level of this whole thing.
Mm.
We have a question from Tory Star, who wants to know whether we think that regulation from the government is the answer here. I mean, do you think we need something where the government is reaching in and saying, I don't know if it's maybe limiting that sort of access that we have to social media, or more importantly, the access that social media has to us and to our data, and those algorithms that make us keep coming back. You know, I wonder if we've already seen a little bit of government regulation trying to creep in on platforms like TikTok and Facebook in
Mhm.
so many instances. So what do you think?
Like Paris, that's something I go back and forth with a lot, honestly. On one hand, you want to trust people who run these companies to actually value their users, to actually care truly about the human on the other side of the screen. The reality is, a lot of people don't. They just simply don't. So I think that there should be some regulation, and if that has to be government, well, it will more than likely be government. So I'm kind of leaning that way, and I say that because these companies are being the incentive works out for them not to care as much about us as humans, right? Like the less they care, the more ads they can run, the more money they can make. So if you mess with that monetization, if you mess with that part of the business, and it's really about just enhancing the lives of humans and providing them tools, we wouldn't have so many people wouldn't be as rich, right? So many people wouldn't be billionaires. And as I said before, America rewards individualism, right? It rewards capitalism. It doesn't really care about how those individual experiences truly affect others. So I'm kind of leaning towards the regulation, because I want to trust the people to do the right thing, but you just can't trust people in 2020. You just
Oh,
can't. So how are you seeing it?
I mean, similarly, right? Because it's like if, you know, social media companies operated like more conscious capitalists, then maybe there would be a little bit more trust. If they had, you know, like if they went into this business like, I don't know, Whole Foods or something, right? Or like Trader Joe's, and they really were like, yes, we're social media, and like we're a corporation, and yes, we're making money, but we also want to give you these tools to make sure that social media is not becoming a lifeline for you and is not abusing you. But I think it also, as the nature of capitalism goes and the nature of things in our market economy goes, is like if you can, you know, monopolize and if you can capitalize on all these things, then you will. And case in point, one of our viewers here with the name Dimprov24 says, I wish we didn't need social media, but I had to sign into my account and create a channel just to add this comment, right? And it seems like the platforms have too much power, and it just goes to show that maybe they do. They really do have a stronghold on all of the things that we do. And so I think I mean, I don't know. I guess everyone would kind of have to just go dark for it to not
Right.
be a thing anymore. But I don't
Right.
know.
I also, in the documentary, there's this comment that said the only businesses where they refer to their customers or their communities as users is drug dealers and social media. Those are the only people that refer to their customers as users. And when I saw that comment, it was like an instant light bulb. Like, wow, we truly, like, legitimately, as a world, for the most part, are addicted to social media. And I don't think addiction in any form is like, a positive, really.
No, right. Everything is good in moderation, including
Moderation.
Terrence, we've got another question from a miracle. I hope I'm saying that correctly. A miracle 17. And a miracle wants to know, do you think as time goes on, social media will take the place of television news outlets? Lots of people use social media, like we've mentioned, for news updates. And I'll take a first stab at this, actually, because this is something that I kind of, as a millennial, have saw unfold in my college career. Really was happening before I was in college, but I really saw people grapple with this when I was in college between 2012 and 2016, which wasn't that long ago. But right, for people, like, traditionally, TV, it was all TV news. My parents are TV news consumers, etc. But then you start to see, news packages or clips of news packages on social media. You start to get the updates on social media. I'm waiting for the day when there's, like, reporters specifically for Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram and Snapchat. I mean, I'm sure there are already some people out there who are doing that. And so, yeah, I mean, to your point, of Miracle, I think it's part conglomerate, but it's also part, like, this is the direction that we're heading in. And as more and more people latch on to social media for news and rely on it for news, I think that's kind of what's going to happen.
Yeah. And although I think we're headed in that direction, I really don't want us to, right? Primarily because I think social media has already had such a huge effect on the news landscape, right? Especially when you think about small towns like where I'm from, areas that really don't have as many news outlets to begin with. Those are shrinking more and more. And although we do get a lot of our news from social media, we have to also admit that there is a ton, I would say, for as much truth that's out there, there's almost double false information that's out there, right? And so, I don't really trust everything that I see on social media, and I don't want us to automatically assume that Twitter and Facebook are, our news outlets. Although those outlets can't be as trusted either because they do have their biases. I just think it's more room to fool people on social.
That's a good point. Well, we'll keep an eye on it. And everyone, please make sure you keep an eye on your screen time. It's always good to take the phone and do this and power down, right? And take a break. When that screen time starts hitting, like, too high, that's when you need to take a break. And you're still with Keep It Social Live. We hope that everyone has been enjoying the conversation. We've been enjoying hearing from you and hearing all your questions. So keep them coming. Terrence and I are having a great time seeing what you all are thinking and feeling. And now we're going to move on to talk about TikTok, another one of our favorite social media platforms. I'm not a avid TikToker, but I do really like the idea of the platform. And everyone was really worried a few weeks ago because we all thought TikTok was going away because the Trump administration said it was going to be banned. And we'd spoken with a TikTok creator, Gianna Gravelisi, about what she was going to do if the app went away. But just kidding, because it seems like TikTok isn't going away just yet, after a judge granted the platform a temporary injunction against a ban in the U.S. So, Terrence, is this good news? Is this okay news? Do there still need to be some changes made?
I just got to be honest and say, I'm not someone that's personally impacted by TikTok, right? Like, I am not a TikToker. However, the way I feel about the comedy that's on Twitter is how I feel about the creativity that's on TikTok.
Absolutely.
The movies, these are like real life movies and films and sketches that just run rampant on TikTok. And I love TikTok for that, right? The creativity. As far as us not losing it immediately, I think that's a positive thing, right? Because especially in this moment, in this pandemic, so many people are using that platform as a release, as a way to express themselves. I am sad about it possibly going away later in November, but I also thought that we came to some agreement nationally with Walmart and ByteDance and other companies, selling parts of the company so that we can still keep it. So I'm also just a little bit confused about the impending ban, but I'm glad it's not happening like right now,
Right. And I would, and it does seem like as the way that these things sometimes go is maybe there was a deal on the table and maybe there need to be some things that are worked out, right? And
Right.
some of those things might be like, oh, can we find a way to safeguard some of this data, especially against, maybe Chinese influence and that was really the biggest concern for the Trump administration. And I think it's a valid concern because it can be easy. And we've talked about this on the show too, about our privacy, right? And like how much of our data is actually really private. And like thinking back to our conversation about the Social Dilemma documentary, it seems like a lot of it really isn't. And so I think it is fair for us to question, okay, like how safe are we? And when we're using these apps and it's fun and like it can be really easy for us to get blindsided and not really understand what we might be vulnerable to. So I think it's a worthy cause to really suss out that deal and see how can we still provide this experience to users but make it as safe as possible.
Right. And, like Tori said, it's such a fun, Tori Star, she left a comment saying how creative it is and how fun the space is, right? And that's true. It really is a fun, creative space. And, I'm just going to jump back to the Social Dilemma because I watched it and it just imparted so much knowledge into my life. It said that, if you aren't paying for a product, you are the product. Right. And so I think what we all have to realize when it comes to these privacy concerns is if we aren't paying for a product, we are essentially the product.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the reality is, what are we going to do about it? Do we truly care enough to delete our accounts? Do we truly care enough to step away? Or are we just saying that, particularly when it comes to TikTok, that we're concerned because it's a Chinese-owned company, right? And that's how I feel. I think the concern is that there's this other country, this Chinese country that owns this app, and so many American people are on it, and we need to protect American people. But you aren't saying that for Facebook, you aren't saying that
Exactly.
for Twitter, my friend, So it's it's
Zuckerberg, as genius as he is just as guilty of making us vulnerable to those kinds of things. Yeah. I mean, that's a fair point, Terrence. And we also, we have talked on the show about some of the flaws that come with TikTok, and about how its algorithms, especially, have treated Black creators and creators of color. And A Miracle 17 is actually commenting on this and saying so many BIPOC, which stands for Black and Indigenous people of color, content creators deserve so much more recognition on TikTok than what they get, right? And I think A Miracle is so right, because we saw that with the Renegade dance, right? Where the young woman who created the dance didn't get the recognition that she deserved initially because it was popularized by somebody else on TikTok. And this happens over and over again.
Right. I think with that, if you go and look on all your social media platforms, usually people of color are not followed as much as their white counterparts, right? Even when it comes to Beyonce herself, I went and I looked at Beyonce's account, and she has 154 million followers, right? And we all know Beyonce, she's queen, she reigns supreme, she's talented. No one can second guess that.
Right.
I then went to Selena Gomez's account, who is not, in my opinion, as strong vocally, as strong of a performer. And Selena Gomez has 194 million followers, almost 40 million more than Beyonce. So if it's happening at that level, it's happening at every level. And I think it's on on these social platforms, again, to really care about the user, right? To really care enough to say, wow, we know this is happening. What are we going to do about it? The thing is, 9 times out of 10, no one's doing anything except saying, oh, at least we have this many followers of color on our platform. At least those are their diversity initiatives, right? We have this many of this group on here, right? But no one really cares about making it equitable and not just equal.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. I mean, I also wonder, like, I don't keep up with Beyonce's TikTok platform, but I do keep up with her Instagram account, right? And she has a robust Instagram presence. The most liked picture ever on Instagram, at least up until that point, was her announcing her pregnancy of her twins on Instagram. And so then maybe I wonder also if it's about branding and persona, and it's like, maybe because Selena Gomez is younger, and maybe like she kind of associated with like the Disney Nickelodeon era, like maybe Gen Z, which largely lives on TikTok, is more of where the audience is for her. But you're right, like someone like Beyonce kind of like transcends age, right? It transcends,
right, exactly.
It's kind of like, wait a minute, I don't know. It's a good question. And Hillary, who's watching, is asking, what exactly is TikTok delivering to Gen Z that's different from what they might get elsewhere? And how would that be replaced if it goes away? And this makes me think about Instagram Reels, right? Because Instagram Reels is similar to TikTok. It's already within the Instagram platform. And so it's something that we're all familiar with. But like, it is also a question of, is this going to be an easy crossover? Again, is it about demographics? Is it just that something about TikTok is more interesting and has a very niche audience that is not going to easily migrate over to Instagram?
I don't think it will per se, or at least I don't think it will happen like right off bat, right? I think that there will be a transition. There will be a large amount of people who do go, but I don't think it will just happen instantly. I think it will happen gradually because people are going to what TikTok is delivering to Gen Z, in my opinion, and all of us, is just this free reign of creativity. It's literally free reign. You can produce anything. Like there's everything from like movies to reality shows to sketches to basically anything you can imagine, like even anime, a form of real life anime is on TikTok, right? So the creativity, the freedom is there. Now, will it also be there on Reels? Maybe once everyone transitions, but I don't think that, I think it will be missed. And I do think that people will be able to move on. It's kind of like with Vine. Everyone loved Vine. It was another creative space, but we all kind of moved on,
Right.
And so I think if it goes away, that'll also happen.
Yeah, well, it's something we'll have to definitely wait and see, and time will tell. How's it going, y'all? You're still watching this live Keep It Social show, and we want you to keep your comments coming and flowing. We're really enjoying hearing from you. And now we're going to talk about something that has been all over our timelines, quite controversial. And that's a question. Is Tory Lanez canceled? Lifestyle news website High Snobiety, that's really cute, says it will no longer report on anything related to Tory Lanez after the rapper used his new album to tell his side of the story involving Megan Thee Stallion and an alleged shooting. So, Terrence, tell me, what's this all about?
So, Paris, when I think of this, I have to be honest and say there are so many layers to this conversation. However, I want to make sure that everyone watching has a little bit of the background knowledge. And we talked about this, of course, 2 months ago. So let's just watch a little refresher. Megan Thee Stallion was out one weekend with Tory Lanez and other people, and sadly ended up getting shot twice. She then went on social media and talked about how traumatizing this was for her and how much, this really affected her emotionally and physically. So Tory Lanez and Megan Thee Stallion, like I said, they were out one weekend, and Megan says that Tory shot her twice. And she shared this really, honest dialogue around, I was truly hurt and affected by this. Like, not just physically, but emotionally. Like, this had a huge impact on me, right? And she didn't do it on some talk show. She didn't do it in like a, Vogue magazine story. She did it on her Instagram live with her fans, with people who I think she knew would truly be there and support her, right? And from that moment on, since the incident, Tory Lanez has said nothing, nothing at all. What he did do is he waited about 2 months, a little bit over 2 months, I think. And he told people, I'm going to speak on this tonight at 9 p.m. 9 p.m. comes. He then drops a link to his album, Daystar, and says, I've said all I had to say on this. Take a listen. I'll be back to discuss at a later time. And I think what my issue is, and a lot of other people's issue is that you use this moment of you shooting a Black woman, right? You use this moment for capital gain. You use this moment to propel your streams on your album, right? Which I actually heard his album streams weren't that high, so it didn't really work. But you tried to capitalize off this moment involving, in particular, a Black woman, right? Especially when we think about the assault that's been happening on Black women for years, but that we're really paying attention to in this moment. In this moment, you want to capitalize on an assault to a Black woman. And so Twitter, all social platforms, really ate him to shreds and said, we aren't going to listen. Don't stream it. Essentially saying you're canceled. And that's where high snobbity came in and said, we're no longer going to cover it because we're going to stand with Black women, right? And so, he's canceled, essentially canceled.
Yes. Yeah. And it was so poignant for me. Like, this came right around this time that the lack of charges around Breonna Taylor's death at the hands of police happened, right? And it just really struck this really bad and awkward tone where you're talking about violence against Black women, and then this is happening, and in the same breath that people are saying Black Lives Matter and arrest the cops who killed Breonna Taylor, they're also turning around and saying, oh, well, we need to hear both sides in the Tory Lanez, Megan Thee Stallion thing. And there's really someone had juxtaposed it really nicely on Twitter, and they had said, we don't talk about it this way when we talk about police violence against Black people, but suddenly when, it's Tory Lanez and Megan Thee Stallion, we have to hear, we have to be like, oh, well, maybe Megan's not completely telling the truth, right? And so
right.
I guess I wonder what, honestly, first of all, Tory Lanez gets on my nerves because I hate that every single song he has samples a great song and then just puts all this auto-tune on it. I remove my feelings about that from this. And then I'm going to look and say, now, Tory Lanez, you couldn't be a little more original. You couldn't come up with something that didn't capitalize on this pain. You couldn't issue a public apology because from what I understand, however it went down, Megan Thee Stallion still went to the hospital with injuries from being shot. And it looks like from you, Tory. So, I just want to know, where was the empathy,
I just think we have to be honest and say when it comes to Black women, there is no empathy, even from Black men a lot of times, right? Mm-hmm. Especially when we think about the discussions that happen around equity and, really uplifting Black women and queer people in the Black community. There's a big difference between what that looks like for most or for a large amount of heterosexual men in comparison to Black women and queer men and non-binary people, right? There's a big difference, I feel, in what that looks like. And this is an example of that. And you also saw once he, said, listen to my album, this is what I'm going to talk about, this is where I'm going to say it. Almost everyone, from my point of view, that was in support of him doing it this way were Black heterosexual men. And so this also highlights a larger conversation around how are Black heterosexual men showing up for Black women, right? How are they truly supporting Black women? Not by just saying, hey, queen, or you looking good, queen, or I love my black queens. Like, not just that, but how are you truly showing up for these women? And the question is, a lot of times, like in Tory Lanez's case, they just simply aren't.
Well, hey, that's the word, Terrence. And I know, in addition to me and you, there's at least one other person watching, Noah James, who is not going to be streaming the Tory Lanez album. I guess we'll have to stream WAP instead.
Right. Stream WAP instead.
All right, y'all, you're still watching this live edition of Keep It Social, and we want to go out talking about a big event that's happening tonight, the first presidential debate of the year. All the issues that are going to impact the election are being discussed on social, whether it's COVID-19, the killings of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and countless others, the death of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and just the general state of life in America right now. So we want to know from you all, what do you think social media's role is in shaping the election narrative? So, Terrence, let me just start by saying, what are you looking for? First of all, are you watching the presidential debate? And if so, what are you looking for?
I am watching the presidential debate, right? Like, in sentence.
Because you want to or because you need to?
No. I need to. I want to be informed.
Yeah.
Am I expecting the answers that I feel I need and that a lot of other people need from either candidate? No. Has social media played a huge part in that? Yes. I think, like I said before, tribalism is huge on every platform, right? And when it comes to these really tense issues, there's, in a lot of ways, in a lot of people's eyes, there's a right and a wrong. And we can't attribute all of that to social media, right? Especially when we think of the social unrest. You have to also take into consideration for people who have been saying Black Lives Matter for centuries and have not been heard, right? Mm-hmm. But police brutality is not anything new. We know Emmett Till. We know Rodney King. Sadly, now we know George Floyd. We know Breonna Taylor. We know Nina Pop, right? So these names, this process of police brutality is not anything new. And I think because of that, tribalism has intensified that much more. And social media has also added more flames to that fire. And it's making it that much more difficult for people to hear each other.
Absolutely. There's a lot of polarization on social media. Going back to the Social Dilemma documentary, that is also part of the dark side of social media, is how we've been pulled in these opposite directions so violently, right, and so ferociously, to the point that here we are, and this is part of our political climate. And right. Tory Star is commenting, saying that social media is going to be the best and worst part about tonight's debate. And I can wholeheartedly agree with that, Tory, because I'm a huge fan of watching big events like debates or the Super Bowl or championship games along with Twitter, right? Because you get to see everyone's comments and memes and we all go back to I always am reminded of one of those early Democratic primary debates when Cory Booker and everybody else started speaking Spanish and people were like, "What is going on?" And that was a fun moment. So I'm looking forward to those, but it's also this is going to be one of those things where it's just there's going to be just a bloodbath on Twitter between left and right, and people just screaming back and forth, people saying all of these offensive comments about either candidate, things that are just not productive and really dilute the whole democratic process.
Right. I agree. And I think, social media is definitely the best and worst parts of the debate are definitely going to happen on social media. Right. And the thing that I always think about is that these platforms have given us the freedom and the privilege to say exactly what we want, when we want, to who we want. The flip side of that is no one or very few people are checking what we're saying, or a lot of social circles online, usually those are people that agree with you, right? And so there isn't a lot of that discussion, you know what I mean? And so, like you said, it's going to be a bloodbath, which I'm not excited about. And that was one of the negative effects that I saw happening uh, in other people that I was referring to earlier when we were talking about the social dilemma, right? When you think about politics in particular, it's so difficult for even people who you may think are right to have a conversation with someone they think is wrong.
Mm,
Uh, it's so difficult. Like, we've lost the skill set to have a conversation with someone we don't agree with. We really have lost that, I feel, as a country. We no longer know how to communicate to people, even if we don't agree with them, even if we don't like them. And I think, of course, social media, like I said, had a huge part in that as well.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And that makes me think about, right in the wake of Justice Ginsburg's death, there were a lot of articles swirling around about her friendship with the late Justice Antonin Scalia, and how they were two different political ideologies, but were long-term friends for a long time because they knew how to engage in these issues in a civil manner, and how to talk about things that they disagreed with or disagreed on, while still remembering that they were friends and still remembering their humanity for each other. And I don't know how we get back to that. I don't know if social media is the answer.
It hasn't been working. Social media hasn't been working. And I think, to another point, we spend so much time literally in our phones that even when you get on a bus or you go in a restaurant, or a lot of times when we're at home with our families, we are more focused on the screens in front of us than the actual
Mm,
people, right? And we're also raising generations to do exactly that, to be focused more on the screen in front of them than the person or the human in front of them, right? And so that's definitely, again, that's definitely another layer to that, right? Is that we're also embedding what's negatively affecting us right now into more generations to come.
absolutely, absolutely. And we've got a number of questions and comments, Terrence. I want to try to get a couple of them in at once. So first we have from Totally Nolly 10. She's saying, I wish the candidates were more savvy when it comes to engaging young voters. Beyond Animal Crossing, please. And I would in with a comment from Luis De Leon, who is saying the memes. Oh my God, social media might trivialize this night, right? So
Right.
trivialize night. So I want to know, like, as far as bridging that gap, because on one end of the spectrum, you have, okay, like, we want our politicians to be cool. We want them to be hip and to be like but maybe it's not necessarily like Twitter fingers all day long, like we have with President Trump, right? But then also, like, being part of that discourse and being part of that culture is also like putting yourself up and being vulnerable to be turned into a meme, right? And or to be
Right.
picked on, and maybe that's just part of it. So what is the balance, especially for a politician?
I think that they, for one, just have to realize that I feel the memes are going to come whether you want them to or not. So don't really worry about that. And if you really want to be cool, in my opinion, with a millennial, with someone like me, if you want to be cool with me, just really, focus on the issues that affect people like me, right? And
Yeah.
don't just do it because you think it's cool, which I think we've seen for years with politicians, right? It's just the idea that I can say I believe in this because it's cool and it's the new wave and it's gonna get the group that I want. When the fact remains that 9 times out of 10, you don't really care about the issues that we really care about, right? Like, a lot of people, honestly, don't really care about healthcare. They don't really care about education. They don't really care about the prison industrial complex, right? And those are the conversations that a lot of people like my age, younger, and even some older than me are having around the clock. And a lot of politicians don't really truly care to have those conversations.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I mean, and I always want to point to AOC because I feel like, or at least early on, she really did it right, where she like took
Right.
to Instagram Live and was cooking dinner and talking about tax policy or something like that. And I'm like, you know
Right.
what? I don't usually like my dinner with tax policy, but okay, like I can do this tonight. Like,
Right. And she's one of the people who's made that connection with a younger audience so authentically and so easily. And I think it's, for one, because she truly believes in the issues that she's fighting for. And for two, she's not caught up in what it means to be a politician. I feel like she's genuinely fighting for people, and I think you can tell the difference, or at least I think I can.
Yeah, most definitely. Absolutely. Well, for everyone watching, while you're tuning into the presidential debate, make sure you tweet at us. Let us know what you're thinking as it's going along. If you see any good memes, share them with us. I'd love to see them. And thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you for submitting your comments and questions. This has really been an engaging conversation. We appreciate you being us along for the whole ride of this season. Terrence, we deserve a round of applause. I'm just going to say, great job. I mean, I know like we were the ones who were doing the job, but I'm just saying I've had fun.
Yeah, it's been great. I feel like I've learned so much and I've grown so much, especially working with you, because you are a complete star. And everyone on the Keep It Social team, it's been a great ride. And I especially enjoy getting to know our audience and the people who talk to us and, send us ideas and comment. Like, that means the world. That means the world.
I absolutely 100% Terrence, and I've learned so much from you as well. I think you've caused myself and all of our audience members to really think deeply about the issues that we've just been discussing. And it's thinking that doesn't just happen when Keep It Social comes on. It's thinking that happens all the time, and we'll keep an eye on it. Well, that's it for us. Thank you all so much for following season 1 of Keep It Social. Remember to register to vote, and remember to show up to the polls. And we hope to be back with you soon. Until then, Terrence, what should they do?
Keep it social. Bye, friends.
Bye, friends.